Evan had never imagined that a job repair could bring him to the center of an entire alien kingdom. As a skilled technician, he had worked on many planets, fixing systems no one else could understand. But nothing in his life had prepared him for the moment he stepped into Queen Melis's palace. Towering walls of smooth crystal shimmered under bright lights, and intricate patterns of alien art filled every corridor. The palace was alive with quiet energy, humming in a rhythm that made Evan's chest tighten with awe. He carried his tools carefully, knowing that any mistake could cost him dearly. The human body was fragile in comparison to the towering, powerful aliens who lived here, but he relied on his intelligence and steady hands as he walked. Palace guards in shining armor eyed him suspiciously. Their armor reflected the light, like mirrors, and their expressions were sharp, unreadable. "Human technician," one of the guards said in a low voice, "remember, this palace is sacred. Every system inside is crucial. One wrong step, and even the queen herself could be harmed." Evan nodded, gripping his toolkit tighter. "I understand," he said, his voice calm. Inside, however, he could feel his heartbeat quicken. The energy core he had been called to repair was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was massive, a pulsing sphere of pure light contained in a complex network of circuits and crystalline conduits. The palace's survival, and perhaps the entire city's, depended on it. He was led into the core chamber, where the energy pulse seemed almost alive. The walls hummed with raw power, and the air shimmered around the glowing sphere. Evan's eyes widened, but he forced himself to focus. He began inspecting the main circuits, noting the irregularities in the energy flow. He muttered quietly to himself, "These readings are unstable. If the surge continues, it could overload the entire palace." From the corner of the chamber, a soft but commanding voice spoke. "Do not damage it further, human." Evan turned and saw her Queen Melis. She stood tall and regal, her eyes sharp and intelligent, her posture perfect. Her presence made the room feel smaller, as if all energy revolved around her. Yet there was something in her gaze that was curious, not hostile. "I won't," Evan said politely. "I'm just trying to stabilize the system." Melis stepped closer, her long robes flowing behind her. "We have lost technicians before. Many could not handle the power of this core. You are small, fragile. Why should I trust you?" Evan smiled faintly. "Because small doesn't always mean weak, and fragile doesn't mean helpless." He did not know why he said it, but the words came naturally. For a moment, Melis studied him. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded and moved to the side. "Proceed carefully." Evan returned his attention to the core. He adjusted several conduits, rerouted energy, and carefully tightened connections. Slowly, the fluctuations began to stabilize. For a moment, everything seemed fine. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, feeling a small spark of relief. Then, without warning, a surge burst through the system. Sparks flew. Energy crackled violently. Alarms blared. The room shook, and Evan's heart leaped into his throat. "Step back," one of the palace engineers shouted, but Evan did not move. He saw the surge heading straight for the containment barrier. If it breached, it could destroy the entire palace. His hands moved quickly, guided by instinct and knowledge. He grabbed the main conduit with protective gloves, even though he knew it could burn him. Sparks flew across his body. Pain shot through his fingers, but he ignored it. He adjusted the core manually, twisting wires and pressing control panels. The surge roared like a wild beast, but Evan held steady. Melis watched, her expression unreadable. For the first time in years, she felt powerless, not because she lacked strength, but because no one could match the human's courage in this moment. Finally, with one last adjustment, the surge subsided. The energy core stabilized, glowing steadily like a heartbeat. Evan stepped back, breathing heavily, his gloves scorched and his uniform burned at the edges. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the core. Melis approached him slowly. You stopped it," she said softly. Her voice carried no anger, only surprise and something else, something unfamiliar to Evan. "Respect. I did what I could," Evan replied, straightening his back despite the burns. "It's safe now. The guards and engineers stared at him in awe. Whispers spread through the room. No one had ever seen a human fragile, small, unarmored stand against such raw energy and survive. Malus tilted her head, her piercing eyes never leaving him. "You are unlike any human I have seen," she said, almost to herself. Strong, steady, courageous. Evan glanced at her, unsure how to respond. Humans were not supposed to impress alien queens, especially not one as revered as Malus. He simply nodded, trying to appear calm. The palace advisor, an older alien with golden skin and intricate robes, spoke first. "Your Majesty." The technician performed well, but are you sure it is wise to let him remain in the palace? He is human, and humans are unpredictable. Malus did not answer immediately. She studied Evan again, her expression softening. "Leave him be," she said finally. "Let him stay. He has earned it." Evan blinked. Earn it? He did not expect praise, much less an invitation to stay. Yet he knew better than to question the Queen's decisions. Over the next few days, Evan continued monitoring the palace systems. He worked alongside the palace engineers, many of whom still eyed him with suspicion. They whispered in their own language, questioning why the Queen allowed a human to interfere with matters so sacred. But Evan ignored them. His focus was the energy core and keeping the palace safe. During his work, he began to notice something strange. The Queen watched him often, not just when he was working, but in quiet moments too. She observed how he adjusted his tools, how he calculated risks, and how he remained calm under pressure. It was as if she were studying him not as a human, but as something more. One evening, as the sun, or what the palace called dual light cycles, dipped across the horizon, Evan finished his day's work and stepped onto a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The alien plants glowed faintly, casting soft light across winding paths. He felt exhausted, but strangely at peace. Maels appeared silently behind him. "You do not fear me," she said. Her voice was calm, almost curious. "Most who enter my palace tremble at the sight of me." Evan shrugged. "I respect you, Your Majesty, but fear is useless. If I feared, I could not do my job." She studied him for a long time. "Your courage is rare. Humans are rare. Perhaps rarer than I realized." He looked away, focusing on the glowing plants. "I do not seek recognition. I just want to do my work and leave safely." Malus's lips curved into a faint smile. "Perhaps it is not recognition you seek. Perhaps it is respect. And perhaps you will find more than respect here." Evan turned to look at her, confused. Malus only smiled faintly before walking away, leaving him alone on the balcony. His heart raced in a way he could not explain. It was not fear. It was not excitement. It was curiosity. That night, as Evan lay in the guest chambers of the palace, he thought about the day's events. Humans had a saying, "Courage is doing what must be done, even when no one is watching." Today, the entire palace had watched, yet he had acted without hesitation. Somehow, it felt important. He did not yet understand why the Queen had allowed him to stay, or why her presence unsettled him so much. But one thing was clear. His life, once simple and ordinary, had changed forever. The palace, the Queen, and perhaps the future of this alien world now depended on him. And for the first time in his life, Evan felt that he was part of something much greater than himself. The next morning, he returned to the core chamber, ready to continue his work. As he adjusted circuits and monitored the energy pulse, he sensed that this palace and its queen was observing him more closely than ever, and deep inside, he knew that this was only the beginning of a journey he could never have imagined. The morning sun, or what the palace called the dual light cycle, slipped through the towering windows of the royal palace. Evan moved quietly along the polished corridors, his toolkit in hand. Today was not about a dangerous surge or a failing reactor. Today was about routine monitoring. Yet something in the air felt different. The palace was alive in a way he could almost feel. Humming quietly beneath the footfalls of guards and servants, he entered the energy core chamber, where the enormous sphere of light pulsed gently, casting shadows across the walls. As he checked the circuits, he he noticed a figure standing in the corner. "Queen Malus, good morning, human," she said softly, her voice calm but deliberate. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, studied him as he worked. "Are the systems stable?" Evan glanced up, nodding. "Yes, Your Majesty. Everything is within safe parameters. I don't see any signs of surges or fluctuations at the moment." Malus stepped closer, her long robes gliding over the floor. "You remain calm in situations where others would panic," she said. "That is unusual for your kind." Evan shrugged lightly, keeping his focus on the instruments. "Calmness helps solve problems. Panicking doesn't." She observed him silently for a moment, and then asked, "Do humans often risk themselves for strangers?" Evan paused. He had not expected such a question. "Some do," he answered finally, "but many only risk themselves for people they care about, or for things they believe are important." Melis's eyes softened. "I see." She moved to a panel across the room, watching him adjust the energy conduits. Though she said nothing more, her presence lingered, quiet and thoughtful. Evan could feel it, like a weight pressing gently on his senses. Days passed, and Evan's work continued. He repaired minor issues, adjusted circuits, and monitored energy flows. The palace engineers were helpful but cautious, never quite trusting a human with the delicate systems. Yet Evan's consistency, focus, and courage slowly earned their respect. Queen Malus, however, did not just observe him from afar anymore. She began speaking to him directly, asking questions about his world and his people. "Tell me about your home, human," she requested one afternoon. "Do humans care for their leaders as we care for our queen?" Evan laughed softly. "It depends on the human and the leader. Some care deeply. Some care only for themselves. But most humans value honesty, courage, and loyalty. Those things matter more than power or titles." Melis's eyes lingered on him. "Your people, they sound simple, perhaps," Evan said with a smile. "But simple does not mean weak. And simple can often see truths that others overlook." She nodded, considering his words. For centuries, the palace had been filled with nobles who cared only for power, titles, and appearances. None had impressed her. None had earned her attention, not until now. A week later, during the palace's grand festival, Evan's unusual presence became even more apparent. The festival was a display of lights, music, and cultural tradition. Alien nobles danced and performed intricate rituals, each move precise and calculated. Malus stood at the center of the court, radiant in her ceremonial attire. Her gaze sweeping over her subjects, Evan walked through the courtyard, quietly inspecting energy channels that powered the festival lights. He noticed that one of the energy conduits feeding the main platform was unstable. Sparks flickered from the floor beneath the noble's feet. A collapse could injure many, including the queen herself. Without hesitation, Evan moved toward the unstable conduit. His hands adjusted the wires, reconnecting circuits with speed and care. The crowd did not notice him at first, focused on the festival's brilliance. Then, suddenly, a section of the platform began to tilt dangerously. A scream erupted as nobles realized the danger. Evan acted quickly, grabbing Melis's arm and pulling her aside just as the platform shifted. The force knocked him off balance, but he held steady, steadying her as she landed safely on solid ground. The crowd froze in shock. No one had ever seen anyone touch the queen directly, let alone protect her from danger. Malus looked at him, eyes wide with both surprise and admiration. You saved me," she said softly. Evan nodded, brushing dust from his uniform. "I only did what anyone should do, protect those in danger." The nobles whispered among themselves, their expressions a mix of fear, confusion, and curiosity. Malus, however, did not turn away from him. Instead, she followed him with her gaze as he continued to secure the platform. After the festival, Malus retreated to her private chambers, but she could not stop thinking about the human who had saved her life. She paced the room, her mind racing. Her advisors had warned her that humans were unpredictable, that their loyalty was uncertain. Yet Evan had shown no hesitation, no fear, only courage. Her thoughts returned to the way he had moved so small, so fragile by alien standards yet so strong in spirit. She had never met anyone like him. No alien warrior, no noble advisor. Not even the most skilled technicians in her palace had ever acted with such fearless precision. Meanwhile, Evan returned to his temporary quarters. He was tired, physically and mentally, but he felt a strange satisfaction. For the first time, he realized that his life was no longer just about work. Something about this palace, this world, and even the queen herself had captured his attention over the following days. Evan noticed that Melis sought his company more openly. She asked questions about human life, about courage, about the simple joys of his home planet. She listened intently as he spoke of loyalty, friendship, and the bonds that held people together. She asked about human relationships, about trust, and even about love. Though she did not yet speak of it directly, Evan answered honestly, unaware that each word was slowly weaving a connection between them. He spoke of human fears, hopes, and dreams. He spoke of the bonds that made life worth living. And each time he did, Melis's fascination grew. One evening, while he repaired a minor energy conduit, she appeared beside him without knocking. "You seem different from the rest," she said softly. Her eyes were thoughtful, almost vulnerable. "Most humans would be terrified to enter my palace, much less handle a core of this power." Evan smiled faintly. "Fear doesn't solve anything. It just slows you down." She studied him for a long moment. "I have ruled for centuries. I have seen many brave warriors and skilled technicians. None have made me feel curious about their spirit, about who they are inside." "You do." Evan blinked, unsure how to respond. I just try to do my job. That's all." Melis tilted her head, her gaze softening. "Perhaps your job is more than just work. Perhaps it is teaching me something I have forgotten about courage, about loyalty, about heart." For the first time in her life, Melis allowed herself to feel something personal towards someone outside her own kind. She did not yet understand the depth of this feeling, only that it was strong, undeniable, and frighteningly real. Evan continued to work under her quiet observation. Yet he noticed that her presence made the palace feel different. It was no longer just a place of duty and ritual. It was a place where connection, trust, and perhaps even understanding could grow. He did not fully understand the queen's intentions, but he sensed that his actions mattered to her not because of power, but because of his heart. That night, Evan stood on the balcony again, gazing at the glowing alien gardens below. The light from the bioluminescent plants reflected in his eyes. He felt exhaustion, yet his mind was restless. He thought about the queen, about the palace, and about the strange, unspoken bond forming between them. A soft voice broke the silence. "You do not fear me, human." He turned to see Melis standing quietly behind him. "I respect you," he replied simply. "Fear would not help either of us." She smiled faintly, an expression rare and fleeting. "Your courage is rare, and your presence here is unusual. Perhaps humans are not as weak as I was told." Evan met her gaze, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. "I did not come here to impress your majesty. I come to do my work and to help, if I can." Melis's eyes softened even more. "Perhaps that is why I feel drawn to you, not because of your strength, nor your intelligence, but because of your honesty. Because you are human." Evan did not fully understand her words, but he sensed the weight behind them. Something was changing not just in the palace, but in the way the queen saw him, and in the way he saw this alien world. As the dual moons rose in the sky, casting soft silver light over the palace, Evan realized that his life had become intertwined with the queen's in a way he could not have predicted. A bond was forming, a strange, fragile, yet undeniable connection that neither of them fully understood. And deep inside, he knew that the days to come would challenge both his courage and his heart in ways he had never imagined. The palace was unusually tense that morning. Word had spread among the nobles that Queen Melis had been spending time with the human technician. Evan, whispers and rumors filled the halls, and the usually serene corridors buzzed with unease. Nobles and advisors questioned one another in hushed tones, wondering why the queen, who had ruled with wisdom and caution for centuries, would allow a human to remain so close to her. Evan, unaware of the growing tension, focused on his work. He moved through the palace halls, checking the energy conduits that powered the ceremonial areas. It was a delicate task, and any disruption could ruin the daily routines of the palace. Yet he noticed the unusual looks he received from the staff and guards. Eyes followed him, some curious, some suspicious, some resentful. He did not care. His only concern was keeping the palace safe. Meanwhile, Melis watched him from her throne room. Her eyes, usually so sharp and commanding, held a quiet worry today. The nobles were growing restless. Some had already demanded that she choose a mate from among their ranks. They could not accept that a human small, fragile, and foreign was present in her palace, let alone someone who had earned her trust. The queen called for a council meeting. The largest chamber in the palace was filled with nobles, advisors, and the palace guards. The atmosphere was tense, like the moment before a storm. Melis stood at the front, her presence commanding immediate attention. Evan followed quietly, unsure why he had been summoned. He did not know that this meeting would change everything. "My queen," one of the nobles began, his voice sharp with authority, "we cannot ignore the fact that a human has been allowed to remain in the palace. This is highly irregular. Humans are unpredictable. They are not part of our society. They are outsiders. How can you permit him to influence matters of state?" Evan shifted slightly, remaining calm. He had expected questions, perhaps criticism. But the nobility's anger and judgment were far stronger than he had anticipated. Melis's voice cut through the room, steady and clear. "Enough. The human technician has done his duty. He has stabilized the core, saved this palace, and ensured the safety of my people. His actions speak for themselves." A murmur went through the crowd. Many were surprised. None had expected the queen to speak in his favor so boldly. Another noble rose, his expression stern. "Your Majesty, with all respect, this is not a matter of duty. It is a matter of tradition and rank. No human has ever been allowed such proximity to the throne. It has been proper." Evan felt a tension coil in his chest. He did not seek recognition, yet he could not remain silent while the queen was challenged for allowing him to be present. He stepped forward, bowing respectfully. "Your Majesty, if it is my presence that causes concern, I am willing to leave. My goal has always been to serve and protect, not to disrupt your court." The room fell silent. The noble's eyes widened, surprised by the humility and courage of the human. Few expected him to respond with respect instead of defensiveness or fear. Melis's gaze softened, but her voice carried authority as she addressed him. "Evan, your choice to serve is not in question. It is your courage and your integrity that concern me. You have acted with honor in every task I have given you. That is why I have allowed you to remain." The nobles exchanged glances, their disapproval growing. Some whispered angrily among themselves. One of the senior advisors stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we insist that you follow tradition. You must choose a mate from among your own kind. Allowing a human to influence court matters threatens the stability of the kingdom." Evan felt his stomach tighten. He did not want to be the cause of conflict. He opened his mouth, ready to explain further, but Melis raised her hand, signaling him to wait. Her eyes, fierce and resolute, swept across the council chamber. "I have listened to your words," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "I have considered tradition and the rules of this kingdom. But no rule, no tradition, and no rank is more important than the judgment of one's heart. For centuries, I have ruled this palace, guided by logic and strategy. Yet I have never encountered someone who has shown me what courage truly is, who has acted not for glory, but for the well-being of others." Her gaze fell on Evan, and she stepped closer. "Human, you have shown bravery that surpasses the strongest warriors here. You have acted with honesty and loyalty, and for that, She paused, her voice softening. The chamber held its breath. "I wish you were my mate." The words echoed through the grand hall. Silence fell immediately. Nobles froze, guards stiffened, and advisors blinked in shock. No one had ever heard Queen Melis speak like this, not to a noble, not to a warrior, Not even to an ambassador. Evan felt his heart leap into his throat. He had not expected this. The words seemed impossible, almost unreal. The room remained silent, waiting for his response. Melis continued, her voice gentle but firm. You have earned my respect, my admiration, and my trust. These are qualities far more valuable than rank or bloodline. You are human, yet your spirit is as strong as any alien I have known. You have shown me the courage and honesty that my people have forgotten. Evan's mind raced. He could see the disbelief on the faces of the nobles, the shock of the advisors, the uncertainty in the guards. All eyes were on him. He knew that his response would either bring further conflict or resolve it entirely. He took a deep breath. Bowing respectfully to the queen, Your Majesty, he said, his voice calm but steady, I am honored by your words. I never sought recognition, only to serve and protect. If it pleases you, I will remain by your side and continue to serve the palace and its people. That is all I have ever wished to do. A murmur of surprise ran through the hall. Some nobles whispered among themselves, unsure how to react. Others stared, wide-eyed, at the human who had just spoken with such courage and respect in front of the queen. Melis's expression softened further. She stepped closer to Evan, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder, gesture that shocked everyone present. Then you shall remain, she said, her voice carrying a quiet authority that brooked no opposition. Not because of your race, nor because of tradition, but because of the truth of your spirit. The room fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. Respect replaced disbelief in some hearts. Others remained unconvinced, but even they could not deny the power of the moment. The queen, revered and feared by all, had made her choice. The council meeting continued. But the tension had shifted. No one dared challenge Melis further. The nobles, though still uneasy, realized that this human was no longer just a technician. He had proven himself in courage, skill, and loyalty, and more importantly, he had won the trust and admiration of the queen herself. Evan, though overwhelmed by the attention, felt a quiet pride. He had not sought power, nor had he wanted it. Yet he understood that his actions, his courage, and his honesty had earned him a place in this palace, a place by the side of a queen who, for the first time in centuries, saw beyond rank, title, and bloodline. Later that evening, Evan returned to the palace gardens to clear his mind. The bioluminescent plants glowed softly, casting gentle light on the pathways. He walked slowly, thinking about what had just occurred. The queen's words still echoed in his mind. I wish you were my mate. He had never imagined that a simple human technician could hold such a place. In the heart of an alien monarch, the responsibility, the honor, and the unexpected emotion weighed heavily on him. Yet he felt ready to face the challenges ahead, to earn the trust of those who doubted him, and to stand by the queen in any circumstance. Melis appeared quietly beside him, her presence gentle but commanding. She did not speak at first, simply walking alongside him as they strolled through the gardens. Then, softly, she said, You have faced the court and the nobles with courage. Few could have done what you just did. Evan looked at her, surprised by her praise. I only spoke truth, he said. I could not do otherwise. She nodded, her eyes thoughtful. That is why I see you differently from others. Truth, honesty, and courage. These are rare qualities, and you possess them in abundance. For a long moment, they walked in silence, the alien gardens glowing around them. Evan felt a strange connection to the queen, something that went beyond duty, beyond work, beyond even gratitude. Something unspoken, yet powerful, had formed between them. As the night deepened and the palace lights shimmered across the crystal walls, Evan knew that the days ahead would not be simple. The nobles, advisors, and even parts of the palace staff would test him, question him, and perhaps even challenge him. Yet he also knew that he had the queen's trust and respect, a bond stronger than any fear, stronger than any tradition. And deep inside, Evan realized that this bond was only the beginning. A connection had formed, fragile yet undeniable, that could grow into something far greater than either of them could have imagined. The palace had never been quieter. Even the hum of the energy core seemed softer, as if it, too, awaited the next move in the unfolding story of Evan and Queen Melis. The nobles had retreated to their chambers, whispering nervously among themselves about the queen's unexpected declaration. Even the guards, though loyal, looked at the human with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Evan walked through the grand halls, his mind heavy with thought. He had never expected to be more than a technician here. He had fixed systems, repaired energy conduits, and ensured the palace's safety, but now everything had changed. The queen's words from the council meeting echoed in his mind. "I wish she were my mate." He paused outside the throne room, unsure whether to enter immediately. The entire court had witnessed the declaration, and he knew that how he responded now would define not just his future, but the future of his bond with Melis. Taking a deep breath, Evan stepped inside. The chamber was empty, save for the queen herself, who stood near the balcony overlooking the city. Her posture was as regal as ever, but there was a softness in her eyes of vulnerability that few had ever seen. "Evan," she said quietly, "you have faced the court with honesty. You have spoken your truth, and yet, I sense your hesitation." Evan approached her slowly, bowing his head respectfully. "Your Majesty, I am honored by your words. I have never sought recognition, only to serve and protect. But I want to be worthy of the trust you have shown me." Melis studied him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You are already worthy, human, more than worthy. It is not skill or courage alone that earns my trust, it is the strength of your heart." Evan's chest tightened. He had faced danger, worked tirelessly, and remained calm under pressure. But he had never expected his heart to be noticed or valued by a queen of this alien world. They walked together toward the balcony, the glowing city stretching out beneath them. The soft light reflected off the crystal walls, bathing both of them in a quiet, ethereal glow. For a moment, neither spoke, letting the stillness of the night surround them. Finally, Melis broke the silence. "I know the nobles will resist this," she said. "They cannot understand why I would choose someone from your world. They see only tradition, rank, and bloodlines. They cannot see what I see, the courage, the honesty, the soul beneath your human form." Evan shook his head slightly. "It does not matter what they think. Their approval is not what makes a bond real. It is trust. It is understanding. And I trust you, Melis." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she allowed herself a small, genuine smile. "And I trust you, Evan, more than anyone else I have ever known." The palace had been tense for days, awaiting news of how the human would respond. By morning, whispers filled the halls. Servants, engineers, and even guards watched the queen and the human technician with new eyes. The once skeptical nobles were now uncertain. Some respected the human's courage. Others remained wary. But none could deny that the queen's decision carried weight, and that Evan had earned a place by her side. Later that day, a new threat emerged. An unexpected fluctuation in the energy core set off alarms across the palace. Sparks flew, and the hum of the core turned into a violent pulse. The palace engineers panicked, unsure of what to do. Some called for the evacuation of the queen. Fearing for her safety, Evan did not hesitate. He sprinted toward the core chamber, tools in hand. Melis, refusing to be left behind, followed him. The nobles and guards watched in stunned silence as the human moved swiftly, skillfully, and without fear. The surge intensified, striking walls and floors with raw energy. Evan adjusted circuits, rerouted power, and stabilized conduits with calm precision. Sparks flew across his uniform, but he remained focused. Melis assisted where she could, using her knowledge of palace systems to guide him. But it was Evan's hands and mind that controlled the situation finally. With a deft adjustment to the main energy flow, the surge subsided. The core's pulsing light returned to its steady rhythm, bathing the chamber in a soft, soothing glow. Evan stepped back, exhausted but triumphant. Melis looked at him, admiration and relief shining in her eyes. "You did it," she said softly, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. "Once again, you have protected this palace. Once again, you have shown courage beyond your years, beyond your kind, Evan smiled faintly. I only did what was necessary. I cannot allow harm to come to you or to anyone in this palace. The nobles, who had gathered at a distance, watched in awe. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Many had doubted him, ridiculed him, and dismissed him as an outsider. Yet here he stood, having saved the palace not once, but twice, and protected the queen herself. Malus turned to face the nobles. Her voice rang clear and commanding. You see now what I have seen all along. Courage, honesty, and strength are not measured by rank or bloodline. They are measured by one's actions. This human has proven himself worthy of my trust and of his place in this palace. The chamber fell silent. Even the most skeptical nobles could not argue against the evidence of Evan's courage and skill. Some bowed respectfully. Others simply stared, their pride wounded by the undeniable truth. Evan, feeling the weight of the moment, bowed to the queen once more. Your Majesty, he said quietly, I will stand by your side. Not for recognition, not for honor, but because it is my duty and my choice. Malus's eyes glistened with emotion. She reached out and took his hand. And that is why I chose you. Not for convenience, not for tradition, but for who you are. Brave, honest, and true. For the first time, Evan felt a sense of belonging in the palace. He was no longer just a technician, an outsider, or a human in a world of powerful aliens. He was someone the queen trusted, someone who had earned respect not through titles or rank, but through courage, skill, and heart. The palace, once filled with whispers and suspicion, now acknowledged his presence with quiet admiration. Guards saluted him differently, nobles regarded him with new respect, and even the palace staff treated him with subtle warmth. The human who had saved the queen and the palace was no longer just a guest. He was part of the royal story now. Days later, Malus and Evan stood together on the palace balcony, overlooking the glowing gardens below. The dual moons cast soft silver light across the crystal walls. The palace felt alive, not with duty or fear, but with possibility. You have changed everything, Malus said softly, not just for me, but for the entire palace. You have reminded everyone what courage, honesty, and loyalty truly mean. Evan looked at her, feeling a strange warmth spread through his chest. I only did what was right, but I am glad it matters to you. Malus reached out and held his hand firmly. It matters more than you know. You have my trust, my respect, and my choice. From now on, you will stand beside me not as a human technician, but as my partner, my confidant, and my mate. Evan's heart raced. He had never imagined a life like this, never imagined that a human could stand beside a queen of such power and wisdom. Yet here he was, not by force or chance, but by the recognition of his courage, skill, and heart. The palace, once tense and uncertain, now seemed to embrace the bond between human and queen. The energy core pulsed softly. The lights of the gardens shimmered, and the halls were filled with a quiet respect for the human who had proven himself worthy. As the night deepened, Evan and Malus stood together, hand in hand, overlooking the city. Two worlds, once distant and separate, now united by trust, courage, and the undeniable bond that had formed between them. And in that moment, the human realized something profound. Courage and honesty could cross worlds, break barriers, and even touch the heart of a queen. The palace, the kingdom, and the future were no longer defined by tradition alone. They were defined by the choices of those brave enough to stand for what was right. Evan squeezed Malus's hand gently. I will stand with you, he said quietly. Always. Malus smiled, a rare, genuine smile that lit her entire face. And I will stand with you, Evan. Always. Together, they turned to look at the palace, the city, and the distant horizon. Two hearts from different worlds, bound not by blood or title, but by courage, honesty, and the unshakable trust they had found in one another. The story of a human and an alien queen, once impossible, had now become their reality.